This is Aylesford in Kent on the River Medway, near where I used to live. Today I want to show how I made an oil painting from this view. Now, every artist works differently, and there are few rights and wrongs when being creative. In time and with experience, you will find a way that suits you, and I might also change the way I do things as well. I begin by laying in roughly the dark areas. By squinting, half closing your eyes, it helps you to see the dark shapes and the light shapes together. I scrub in these dark shapes using paper kitchen towel and French ultra and burnt sienna. Remember, they are just shapes, not objects. Once the darkest darks are in, then I usually place the lightest light. So you need to squint again, and I notice that the sky is the lightest area of all. After all, it's the source of the light, so it's not surprising. And because the water is directly facing the light source, it is about a tone darker than the sky. So the darker areas in this scene are the background trees, the trees to the left, the bridge facing us, and the shadows in the water. The midtones are the trees to the right, the church tower, and the cottages beyond the bridge, which are in full sun. The aim is to cover the board in these three tones first, but I'm usually impatient to get some colours mixed. Composition. I've chosen a view which has a strong horizontal, the bridge, and a strong vertical, the church tower. The river leads the viewer's eye into the picture at the lower left, up towards the bridge, where the eye can then choose to go either left and over the bridge to end at the church tower, or right up to the church tower and then back along the row of roofs and over the bridge. Either way, it's a circular route designed to keep the eye engaged for as long as possible. Enjoy the process and don't fret about the outcome at this stage. So now I have started to block in some colour. Remember, it's shapes and tones, not objects. By painting the shapes using the correct tonal values, the objects will just emerge as if by magic. So it doesn't really matter if you can't draw trees, as long as you look and look again and put in the correct shapes and the correct values. So now I've started to scrub in the sky, but it's too dark at the moment, so I'll lighten it later. As the lightest element in the painting, if I paint it too dark, then everything else will end up too dark as well. So that's why I put the lights in early. Then the mid-tone shapes can take their place in between the extreme darks and the lights. You can check the values using a smartphone. Take a photo of the scene and turn it into a black and white image. This can help you to see tones accurately. Someone once said that the colours take all the credit, but the tones do all the work, and it is absolutely true. Whilst on tones and composition, it's good if you can link up some of your dark areas and take them out towards an edge. The final image just seems to have more strength when this is done, and after all, as artists, our aim is to make paintings which have the power to draw the viewer's eye across a busy gallery. I've just picked up the brush and I'm using a number 4 flat bristle brush here, but the best advice is to use the largest brush that will do the job. It will stop you from fiddling and putting in too much detail. At this stage, I check that the shapes are in the right place, and then I add the water a little darker than the sky. I also show the position of the shadow under the bridge. It's just getting some details in the water, just some initial few highlights and a few shadows. Okay, so as I start to put in the foliage, it is shapes and colours. Mixing greens. I prefer to mix my own and usually use a mix of blue-black, which is a Winsor & Newton colour, and lemon-yellow to get a good range of dark through to light greens. Other mixes can use French Ultra and cadmium yellow or yellow ochre. If the green is too vivid, it's good to put a tiny touch of red, which is the complementary of green, which will darken it a tone. Practice mixing as many greens as possible and make yourself a chart to take out painting with you when you go. While I put in the greens, you have probably noticed that I work rather quickly. Well, I cheated a little. This video started out at 2 hours in length, so to avoid making you watch paint dry, I speeded it up by twice and removed much of the palette mixing time, so don't be alarmed if you prefer to work at a slower pace. When putting in the greens, show some variety by looking for the darker and the lighter areas. And whenever adding light areas, keep them away from the edges of the painting, or they will lead the viewer's eye out of the work, which isn't what you want. Remember, the eye will be drawn to the area of maximum contrast, i.e. where you place the lightest light against the darkest dark. This is the focal point. Have you decided yet where it should be? Okay, so here I've started to lighten the sky a tone, and I'm going to place a few highlights on the water at the same time, but notice how the sky now is obviously lighter than the water, which is great. Remember to give shape to the trees using highlights and darker areas, shadows beneath them, and do leave some holes for the birds to fly through. Reflections in the water. Pull down some colour from the far riverbank, then pass a couple of lighter lines horizontally through those darker areas. This will indicate the flat plane of the water. Just lightening up some of the trees on the right because I had them in a bit too dark at the start. These are the sort of adjustments to make as you go along. Just shaping some of those dark trees behind the cottages. Okay, so I've left the cottages till last, really. Um, I should try and work over the whole surface at the same time, so it is best not to choose one area and concentrate, putting in lots of detail, forgetting about the rest of the work. If you have a colour mix, then see where else in the painting it belongs and place it there. Remember, it's still shapes and colours of the correct tonal value, light or dark. I've decided my focal point will be on the bridge almost below the church tower in front of the cottages, where I'll place a couple looking over at the river, so I keep my cottages bright as a background for the couple. Remember, the focal point needs to be away from the centre of the painting, following the rule of thirds for good composition. From this stage on, there is much finishing to do, looking at each part in turn and deciding if it's clear, do I understand what everything is, are the shapes and tones still correct, or do they need adjusting? And are there any areas that don't read well? Just putting in some shadows and some little details in the church tower. After all, that's pretty well near the focal point, so that's where the eye will be drawn. I also noticed that my bridge at the moment is too light. I need to darken that a bit. There's the clock on the church tower. Just putting in the roofs of the cottages on the bridge. Putting some highlights on the cottages. Of course, the cottages are in full sun. By the way, if you're enjoying this and find it useful, then please don't forget to subscribe. There should be a button below or at the end of the film, and that means you'll get to see the other ones I've made. I've got about 14 on my YouTube channel, and also when I make another one, you'll get a notification just to tell you there's a new video in case you want to watch that. So I hope you're enjoying it anyway. As I say, this is how I do it. It's not necessarily the right way to paint, and whether there is a right or a wrong way, I'm not sure there is, but it's how I do it at the moment anyway. So just finishing up the detail on those cottages. So now, just darkening the bridge a little, this has the effect of bringing it towards us and setting the cottages back behind it. Remember, warm colours always want to come forward and cool colours want to recede. Yet I don't want those cottages looking as if they are on the bridge like the old London Bridge. If necessary, I'll cool them a little, but they are still in full sunshine, so I need to remember that. I must remember to stand back from my work more often. That way I can see the whole picture and check for problem areas. Whilst there, I'll check if my shadows are believable, i.e. are they dark enough or too dark? Are they made up of the underlying local colour and darkened the correct amount? I still have trouble choosing correct shadow colours, even after the thousands of paintings I have created over the years. Remember, shadows aren't just blue. Try putting a dark shadow on a pink cottage. It could end up purple if you get it wrong. So you still want it to look like a pink cottage in shadow. Just putting a little cottage in on the left, right on the left edge of the painting, and I don't want it sharp because I don't want it to draw the eye out of the painting. Just getting the shadows under the arches now. Just putting some of those sky holes in for the birds to fly through. Okay, I hope you found this helpful and not too daunting. If you have enjoyed it and would like to see more, please hit the subscribe button at the end or below and the bell to be notified when the next is released. I have a selection of similar videos on YouTube which I'm sure you will enjoy. Also, please visit my website at www.julianlovegroveart.com, where you can follow me on this journey.